Hi guys, this is Hima Hegde, bringing to you the daily news podcast at Sourcing Classes. All the news you need to know and more.
To begin with, let us look at the topics underlined for today. In today's session, we will be discussing the Banking Regulation Amendment Bill, which can be associated with either GS2 or GS3. Secondly, we will be looking at the facts out of the Environment Ministerial Meeting, which is a part of the Environment section in General Studies 3. The headlines on the screen read, Banking Regulation Amendment Bill passed in Lok Sabha to bring cooperative banks under RBI. Parliament proceedings live updates. Banking Regulation Amendment Bill 2020 passed by the Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha passes the Banking Regulation Bill to address the disruptions in the financial system. Clearly, these headlines are about the Banking Regulation Amendment Bill being passed in the Lok Sabha on 16th of September 2020, that is yesterday. Here's the roadmap. We'll first be looking at what is the Banking Regulation Amendment Bill. We'll then look into the provisions under the same, then the necessity for the amendment bill, lastly the way forward. So the Banking Regulation Amendment Bill 2020 was introduced by the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman in the Lok Sabha to provide more powers to the RBI in order to regulate the cooperative banks. So this bill is an amendment to the Banking Regulation Act of 1949. This empowers the RBI to deal with the stressed assets in the banking sector. Primarily, the bill allows the RBI to initiate insolvency and bankruptcy against the willful defaulters. So, insolvency is the inability to pay the debts when they are due. Bankruptcy refers to the legal proceedings against the insolvency. And a willful defaulter is a borrower who has not cleared his debts despite having the capacity to do so. The RBI will also be empowered to issue other directions for resolution, to appoint or approve for appointment authorities or committees to advise the banking companies for stressed asset resolution. This will also get the multi-state cooperative banks in the radar. Multi-state cooperative banks are nothing but the multi-state cooperative society that undertakes banking business. So before we proceed, let us have a look at what are the cooperative banks or what is a cooperative banks. Customer owned financial entity. So a cooperative bank is a financial entity that belongs to its members who are at the same time the owners and the customers of their bank. So in India, the cooperative banks are registered under the State Cooperative Societies Act. Coming to the profit allocation, a significant part of the year's profit or the benefits or the surplus is usually allocated to constitute the reserves, and a part of this profit, that is the part of this reserve, is distributed to the cooperative members with legal and statutory limitations. Most importantly, they have played a significant role in the financial inclusion of the unbanked rural masses. Let us now look at the provisions under the same. So firstly, the proposed law seeks to enforce the banking regulation guidelines of the RBI in cooperative banks, while the administrative issues will still be under the Registrar of Cooperatives. So the cooperative banks would be audited according to the rules of the RBI. Coming to the CEO appointment, this will require prior approval of the central bank, that is the RBI. RBI can supersede, that is take place of the management in case of liquidation or failure of any cooperative banks. The amendments will apply to all the urban as well as the multi-state cooperative banks. This aims at increasing professionalism and improving corporate governance by introducing the necessary structural reforms in the banking sector. So, what is the necessity? What is the need for this amendment bill? The first one says depositor interest protection. So this becomes necessary. The amendment bill becomes necessary in order to protect the interests of the depositors. Currently, there are 1,540 cooperative banks in India with about 8.6% depositors having savings worth approximately rupees 5 lakh crores. Hence, it becomes very important. Next, it is necessary to get down the fraudulent practices. In the past 5 fiscal years, there were nearly 1,000 fraudulent cases registered among the urban cooperative banks worth more than rupees 220 crores. More than 220 crores. And then we also have the PMC crisis. The PMC bank scam had prompted the need for the improved laws that can ensure better management and governance of these banks. So basically PMC had violated the RBI norms of exposure. Then coming to the NPA, NPA stands for non-performing assets, and the non-performing assets have been growing because of the accumulated interests. Steel, infrastructure, power, textiles are some of the industries or some of the sectors with highest NPAs. Increase in NPA would naturally mean a decrease in growth. As a result, monitoring and actions become necessary. Now let us look at the way forward. Capital infusion. So capital infusion in banks is about the cross subsidization within a firm. Cross subsidization within a firm. That is, when one division is not doing well, it might benefit from an infusion or allocation from an other division within the firm that has been more successful. Allocation of fund. The division within the firm which is more successful can allocate some of the fund to the division that has not been doing well. So this is about the cross subsidization, and this is the capital infusion. Strict licensing to the new cooperative banks. And needless to say, there is a need for effective management, surveillance and governance. Minimization of procedural errors becomes necessary. Then there is also a need for technological advancement in regulation and supervisory technology. Lastly, risk evaluation and intervention, also regular inspection and auditing becomes necessary. In conclusion, this bill is the need of the hour that gives RBI more power to deal with the management, operational and board level issues and minimizes the state interference. This would also restore the trust of the depositors and investors in the banking system. So that's about it in this article. Moving on, here's a snapshot from the PIB which reads, Global Initiative to Reduce Land Degradation and Coral Reef Program launched at G20 Environment Ministers Meet. India is committed to working with the G20 nations for a better world, says Shri Prakash Javadekar. So now this article in PIB is about the Environment Ministers Meet, which took place, a meeting of the G20 countries that took place on 16th of September, that is yesterday, through video conferencing under the presidency of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So this is purely factual, so I've dropped the facts and concepts if needed before you. Moving on. Firstly, what is G20? G20 as in Group of 20. G20 is an international forum. It is an international forum for the government and the central bank governors. The government and the central bank governors from 19 countries such as India, Australia, Canada, Japan and so on. Also the European Union. So what was the purpose of the G20? The purpose of the G20 was to bring together the most important industrialized and developing economies to discuss the international economic and financial stability. So that's about the G20. Coming to the Environment Ministerial Meeting, so representing India, Union Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar applauded the launch of Global Initiative to reduce the land degradation and Coral Reef Program and 2 documents on climate change related to managing the emissions managing emissions and climate change adaptations under the G20 this year. So there was this meeting, the Environment Ministerial meeting, that aimed primarily at the coral reef conservation and reduction of land degradation. Land degradation is the loss of productive capacity of the soil. Now this can affect everyone through food insecurity, higher food prices, climate change, environmental hazards and loss of biodiversity. As a result, it becomes very important to reduce the land degradation. So what are coral reefs? Now coral reefs are the colonies of tiny creatures called coral polyps. They live in the ocean, that is they live in the saline waters. They are called as the tropical rainforests of the sea. Though they occupy just 0.1% of the ocean surface. They are a home to more than 25% of the marine species. They are found on calcium carbonate exoskeletons of their ancestors. Like I said, they are found in saline waters only, and the average salinity of the water needed for their growth would be between 30 to 40%. The temperature of the water ideally should be between 23 and 25 degrees Celsius. Most importantly, it should not exceed 35 degrees Celsius or drop below 20 degrees Celsius. Let us now look at the factors affecting the coral reefs, that is the factors affecting the growth of the coral reefs. The extreme climatic conditions. We have already looked at the temperature requirement for their growth. So high temperature of the water leads to the declination of these corals as they cannot survive in high temperatures. As estimated by the scientists, most of the coral reefs of the world will soon decline with increasing rates of ocean warming. Secondly, we have the overfishing. It is another major concern as it is leading to an ecological imbalance of the coral reefs. Coastal development is also causing significant damage to the coral reefs. It refers to the development of coastal infrastructure and the tourist resorts on or close by these coral reefs. Needless to say, pollution is also responsible, that is the toxic pollutants which are dumped directly into the ocean can lead to the poisoning of the coral reefs. Lastly, we have the sedimentation. Construction along the coasts and islands can lead to soil erosion, which will increase the sediments in the river. As a result, it can smother the corals by depriving them of the light that they need to survive. So that was about the coral reefs. Moving on, what is the Global Coral Reef R&D Accelerator platform? Now this is an innovative initiative. It is an action-oriented initiative that is aimed at creating global research and development program. To enhance the research, innovation and capacity building under the Coral Reefs Conservation Program for the coral reef conservation. So why is it so important to conserve the coral reefs? We have already seen that more than 25% of the marine species are residing along the coral reefs. Along with that, the coral reefs play a critical role in providing food for more than 500 million people living on or near the coast. That is, they also ensure food security. Adding on to it, they provide livelihood. The coral reefs provide livelihood to the individuals in the tourism industry, including the hotel workers or the dive guides and more. Moreover, they provide protection. They serve as marine barriers, natural marine barriers that protect the coastal communities from high impact waves during the tropical storms, hurricanes and tsunamis. There are multiple more reasons as to why the conservation of coral reefs becomes so important. Moving on, the global initiative on reducing the land degradation. We have already seen what is land degradation and why it is important to reduce them. So now this initiative aims to strengthen the implementation of existing frameworks to prevent, halt and reverse the land degradation within the G20 member states and globally, taking into account the possible implication on achievement of other sustainable development goals. So this article was all about the program to conserve land degradation and the coral reefs. We have seen both what is land degradation and why is it important to reduce land degradation, along with what are coral reefs and why is it so important to conserve them. So that's about it in this article. So here is a snapshot from the D&D document that you will find in the official sourcing classes website. The answer to the yesterday's question is option B. The prelims practice question for today would be, according to UNDP, which country from the following list is amongst the worst affected countries in Asia region and potentially globally due to the impact of COVID-19? So option A, Brunei, option B, India, C, Maldives, D, Malaysia. So here are the mains oriented questions. What does the emerging new order in West Asia mean? Discuss. The profile of the matriarch of culture research, Kapila Vatsyayan. Discuss the quadripartite agreement failure and the issue of Brew resettlement. What entails with the amendment to the Banking Regulation Act 1949? Briefly explain the capsule-based solution for stubble burning. You'll find the answers in the official website of sourcing classes in the D&D document. So that's about it for today.
Thus, leaving you all to write the answers in the comment section, it's a wrap on your news podcast. Tomorrow is another day with another news. Thank you.